Today, I want to share with you a teaching that may defy all logic, but may be the most valuable decision you could make for improving the quality of your life and the productivity of your work. "27 years, 4,000 plus doses, I have learned a lot in working with sacred mushrooms. Not just about the mushrooms, though, about human nature, about consciousness, about what makes us tick and what makes us tick a little better. And this topic that I'd like to share with you today, as I said, it defies logic. And it was one that, well, it still takes me time to sit with. But the more I do, the more I realize the power in this lesson. All right, we're going to travel over to China here short for a little bit, right? Um, if you've been following my work for any while, you may be aware that Daoism has a significant impact on how I understand the workings of the world. And this is because Daoism is a science of the human being. I've struggled with fanciful religion, magical thinking, manifestation, and that kind of talk. I need grounded, studied, analytical understanding of this world. And I experience that there is a lot more going on than meets the eye. That requires reconciling two pretty different ways of seeing the world. Taoism does that so well for me. It's an ancient philosophy. About, I think, 2,500 years ago is when the Tao Te Ching was written down. But prior to that, it has a history going back 500 to 1,000 years prior. I say it's a science because the practitioners consider themselves students of the natural world, studying the laws of nature, studying physics, studying the heavens, studying the human physiology. And one of the most powerful teachings that comes out of this philosophy is what's called Wu Wei. And Wu Wei translates basically into action through inaction, doing through not doing. Now, Taoism is full of paradox, and that is one of the ways that you know it is full of wisdom. Now, I know even this idea of paradox is a lot for the Western mind to struggle with. It's difficult for us to hold two opposing concepts simultaneously. But when we can do that, well, we find that that leads to real wisdom. Now, I'm not going to go into paradox itself. We'll save that for another video. Here, I just want to talk about this Wu Wei, this action through inaction, and how this really came to be understood clearly by me through the work that I've done over the years. Now, let's see. First of all, let's take it out big picture. We are here all together on this amazing living ecosystem, rock, water, earth. It's astounding. It's the way that it functions, the way that everything seems to work together, except maybe humans, is quite astounding. And it requires no will, no force. It just happens. The planets spin in their orbit, the moon around the earth, the changing of the seasons, the migration of animals, massive undertakings, huge movements of energy, and none of it requires will. None of it requires force. It just happens. Now, humans are in an interesting position. We have this thing called willpower. We have this ability to imagine and create, and that is amazing. And we are also, just like the birds of the air, just like the beasts of the earth, we are natural creatures guided and directed by, honestly, an intelligence that is impossible for us to comprehend. The force of evolution, or let's say the mechanism of evolution that has brought us to this very moment, all of the history that has come before us, that has become this cresting wave of the present reality, we can look at that and think to ourselves that there were choices that were made, there was will that was involved, and to an extent that's true. And yet, evolution functions and has brought the human being into existence without any force of will. I'm laughing because as I sit here with you, I hear a vehicle go by, and you know, recording videos is one of these things where you try to produce it, try to set it up, try to create all these optimums where things go just as you want them to, and they generally don't. So I'm going to go with that. I'm just going to let that motorcycle be in the camera or in the audio. Where this became a lived reality for me is in studying the mushroom space, in studying the experiences of around 2,500 people that I've supported now. And what became profoundly clear to me eventually was that there is some intelligence underlying all experience that brings us where we are. I know this can be a difficult concept to internalize when you haven't had a lot of time really observing the unfolding. It's best visible from a macro perspective. You know, we just had the most recent Artemis tour of the moon, and the images that came back of the Earth from space always impressed me, and I think everybody to an extent. It's actually a phenomena that is recorded and it was first documented by astronauts, the observer effect, uh, where you seeing. No, it's not the observer effect. I'm blanking on it right now, but I'm not going to worry about it. Um, Seeing the Earth from space and having this realization that it's more like an ant colony than the highly advanced civilization that we might like to believe. If you've ever watched an ant colony, the different ants have different jobs, and looking at it from above, you can maybe see the the different flow of the different types of ants in their organization. But at a certain point, it becomes a single organism or a hive mind, as is often spoken of. And humans are not really any different. Even the conversation around will is an interesting one to have. Uh, there are a growing number of advanced physicists who seem to understand or extrapolate through their uh, formulas that the human will is not nearly as free as we might like to imagine. There have actually been measured prior to uh, the physical movement neurosynapses up to 7 seconds prior to the actual physical activity that indicate its onset. So basically, before we have decided to do a thing, it's already being decided somewhere. And there are one of my favorite physicists, um, blanking on his name, Federico Fragin, I think is his name. He's an Italian physicist. Has developed an equation that he says proves that will actually happens on the field level, that we in our physical bodies are simply a manifestation of fields of energy, and that when we think that we are deciding to do something, that that decision is actually coming from what this physicist and others call a higher self. Now, here's where it gets really interesting, because our physical bodies, our analytical minds can override some paradoxical way, can seem to override this higher self. Have you ever had an intuition, and because of your own skepticism, because of your own distrust of your intuition, you didn't follow through with it, and afterwards you realize that you really should have? That is an interesting example of this um, resisting of the flow of intelligence from this higher self. And I understand these conversations can get into some territory that makes a analytical, rational person uncomfortable. I have been one of those people. I've also had the incredible fortune of spending thousands of hours working in these liminal spaces where things that just don't seem like they should be are clearly happening right before me. Um, and so, as we overanalyze, overthink what is trying to come into being, we actually stop that process, or we thwart that process. Again, I have been studying this, exploring this for 15 years now, and it's still really challenging to put into words. But I want to, because it's life changing when we allow whatever is trying to happen, rather than getting in the way of it with our analysis. Then we find that despite what maybe we want or what we think we want, that there is something even better that is coming through. Now, this requires that we understand and trust that there is some kind of greater intelligence. And if that's not you, well, you probably haven't made it here if you don't have at least some inkling that there is an intelligence greater than the self, that there is some design that is unfolding. And we get to be a part of that. We get to encourage that design. And this is the teaching of Wu Wei, that by being in the stream, by going with the flow of what is trying to arise, that we actually more efficiently and more effectively bring our vision into the world. Because your vision, your imagination, your inspiration, this is that higher self trying to find its way into the world. If you're a business founder, there is something that is trying to come through you. And I have, having run multiple businesses, this razor's edge of inspiration and flow and willpower and desire and impetus, it is a very subtle, very difficult dance. And I have found that the more I try to assert my will over what is trying to come to fruition, well, the more hangups there are, the slower things go, and the more I get out of the way and just be an instrument of consciousness, trying to assist in birthing whatever it is that's trying to come into this world. Even this channel, there are so many times that I've sat here and tried to think about what it is and analyze what it is that I need to say. And like, there's real value in having an outline or having an idea of the general direction. But the more I get out of the way and allow it to just come through me, then the better it is. So I just want to encourage you to do the same. It's a very, very difficult thing to do. It takes constant practice. This, I believe, is kind of one of the primary purposes of being human, is to find out how to get out of the way. it's a it's a really difficult thing to talk about. It's a more difficult to embody. I hope that this has at least provided you some food for thought to consider how you can get out of the way a little bit more and allow whatever is coming through from the invisible world into the visible world through you to do so in a more efficient, more joyful way. Because that's really what it comes down to. The more we fight for it, the more we resist, the more we persist, well, we cause ourselves a lot of stress and anxiety. And the more we relax and allow and joyfully observe things as they come into being and facilitate in ways that we can when the time is right, well, the better it tends to be for everybody. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope that you maybe experiment with this a little bit. Drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. If you're interested in checking out the community that my wife and I have built for Sacred Mushroom Practice, that's sanctuary.org. If you are curious about working with me privately for a 12 or 24-week program, you can find information out about that. Both of those websites are linked in the show notes. I look forward to sharing with you another conversation. Thank you.